Hey everyone, welcome to the Arable Leader podcast with me, Karl Martin, and today with Emily Sanders, one of my colleagues at Arable. She's going to ask me some questions around the cave, the road, the table, and the fire, the book that we put into the world a few months ago, and what that means for me, what it means for us, and why it's seminally important for leadership. Leadership, you see, I believe, is spatial. It is found in spaces. It is fundamentally important where you find yourself. It's fundamentally important for the development of your leadership and for the care of your leadership. Your life is contextual. Where you find yourself will affect yourself. And if you're not to become a victim, you get to and have to decide where you place yourself, how you place yourself, and how you do so on a daily basis. You see, rhythm creates habit, which creates lifestyle, which creates impact in the world. So Cave, Road, Table, Fire is actually just a way to introduce true, brave, kind, curious leadership into your days and into your weeks and into your life. This is the Arable Leader podcast. I'm Karl Martin, and we're exploring true, brave, kind, curious leadership, leading from your soul. So, Emily, please feel free. Go ahead. Let's talk about those spaces.
All right, let's get into it. So let's start in the cave. That's the best place to start, I think. So You say that the cave is where you find your true. So what does that mean to you? And let's speak both philosophically and really practically. What does it mean to find your true in the cave?
Okay, let's start philosophically. There is so much to you and about you that is still to be discovered. We are all incredibly complex creatures. I think it's Carl Jung who said, until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate. We talk about the things that you are unaware of control you. The things that you are aware of, you have choices around. So what it means to be true is discovering the unconscious part of yourself as well as the conscious part of yourself and bringing it into play so you know what it feels like to be the other side of you. You know where you need to grow. You know what is the truest truth about you, and you can present that to the world. So in practical terms, it's about being willing to do some work. It's about being willing to face down the things that you might not know about yourself, but they're out there in the world, or that you do know about yourself and you're burying deep because you don't want that exposed. And it's that the cave really is about making sure that you come front and center with that truth on a daily basis, so that the world doesn't just come at you, you come at the world. I get to decide who I am going to be and how I am going to be who I really am at the beginning of the day.
Okay, so when you're in the cave, you offer 3 questions that you use to really ground yourself in the way that you were just describing. Yeah. You say the 3 questions to ask yourself are, who am I? Why am I? How am I? Now, those are obviously huge, huge questions. And my question for you is, do those get repetitive or stale if you're really revisiting them every single day?
It's the identity question, the purpose question, and the culture question. And inevitably, those questions get repetitive, but they don't get stale. They get repetitive, and it's good because, I need to be reminded again and again and again and again and again of who I am and how I'm supposed to show up in this world. It's the 10,000 hours of the personality development. That's who I am. That's what I'm for. Yeah, that's how I want to be experienced. So I have no problems with it becoming repetitive. I don't think, however, that it becomes stale because contexts change all the time. The dynamic changes, the situation changes, the opportunity changes. So the way in which I appropriate appropriate those questions and then apply those questions is daily and dynamic and different. So as long as you're willing to sit in the middle of the reality of the situation you're about to encounter, those questions change for me. Those the appropriation and application of those questions. Today, who am I? I'm a father. I'm going to be a father. I'm going to be a father not just to my kids, but to my team. I'm going to be a father when I walk into a room because I carry something of that. Today, I'm going to be a catalyst. I'm going to be provocative. I'm going to be slightly annoying because we need to move some things. How am I going to show up? I'm going to show up with kindness. That's generally something I want to do. How am I going to show up? I'm going to show up with strength. And so these questions are not boring, although they can be repetitive, but they're definitely not stale if you're doing it properly.
Okay, so repetitive by design.
Yeah.
And if they get stale, it's only because your life is stale. No, you've got to keep applying it to the context that you're in. Okay.
Yeah, totally, Emily. And if your life is stale, there's a whole bunch of other questions that you might want to ask.
Right. That's a whole new problem.
Which is probably the road.
Right. That makes sense. So I'd love to ask you, if you'd be willing to answer, what are some of those things that you're currently wrestling through in the mornings? You just described some examples of, showing up like a father and how you challenge yourself, but what specifically are you wrestling with?
I think one of the things that I wrestle with probably continually, and I'll probably wrestle with it until the day I die, is the spirit of comparison, the desire in me to compare myself with people who are a little bit like me, but not totally like me. And then the temptation to feel like an imposter or to feel less than or to feel as if I'm not getting ahead or not getting in the game in the way that they are. And that's really challenging for me. I find that the social media thing really challenging for me. I have to approach it with a real clear mind, or I end up going down a rabbit hole of comparison, which will make me feel like I'm operating in a red ocean where there's a limited amount of opportunity and everyone else is fighting for the same fish, if you like, if you're using the illustration correctly. Whereas in truth, I am unique. What we offer at Arable is different. It's not the same as anybody else. And the way in which we show up is different. And if I can get that in my head, then I win the battle of the day, the first battle of the day, which I think is a battle of comparison, and effectively comes from a place of fear, which I don't want to live in.
Thank you for sharing that. It does make sense why connecting to the truest thing about you first thing in the morning can kind of shut out those voices of comparison.
Yeah. And I find that if you don't get ahead of it, if the first thought of the day is a fear thought or a comparison thought or a I'm not measuring up thought, it's really hard to recapture that day. But if the first thought of the day is, hey, it's good to be alive, and I'm glad I'm me, and I know who I am, and I know what I'm for, and I know how I'm going to show up, it really reframes the opportunity that you have as an individual.
Yeah, sets you on the right road, which is where we'll go next. Perfect. So when you talk about the road in your book, you call it the way of the brave. So tell us what you mean by that, and why is bravery a characteristic that you need to focus on daily, not just the big moments of life, but every day?
Gosh, yeah. I'm totally committed to a brave journey being the only journey for the kind of leader that everyone who's listening to this wants to become. And it's so important because comfort is so attractive and comfort zones are so attractive. And even the way our culture is wired, we're wired towards moving towards comfort. The cultural norms, particularly where I grew up, were to get a successful job, have a successful family, buy a house, pay off the mortgage, get comfortable. You've solved most of life's difficult problems, and then kind of freewheel down the other side of your life because you live in a comfort zone. And the comfort zone itself is a great place for resting and healing. We've said that before, but it also inoculates yourself against the very things that make you alive. Passivity, I think, is the enemy of everything good in your life, because the off-balance slightly fearful, testing space that psychologists call liminal space is the place where everything grows and everything is tested and people have a go. And so I think leadership, great leadership, comes from a place of bravery, an ability to take risks, to have a go, to not be absolutely certain, but to go for it anyway, to develop great ideas. And comfort is, it's not the enemy, but it is I guess it's the inoculating force that stops us going after the brave.
Yeah, so much of our culture tries to woo us into going after comfort above all else. It's such a lie, right?
Yeah. I mean, just even how tempting is it to not go out and meet your friends and have a great conversation, but to stay in on the sofa and watch Netflix? Mm-hmm. How comfortable is it to stick with your decided group of friends and not include other people, because that messes with the equilibrium, when the truth is they could really create some great possibilities for some great conversations and great opportunities. So it's always that draw towards comfort, which is not wrong. It's great to be comfortable, but I think it kind of militates against the pioneer spirit, the breaking ground spirit, the change spirit, which is what leadership is all about.
Yeah, we've got to fight for it every day. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So in your book, you talk a lot about how an anchoring point for the bravery along the road is finding your purpose. Yes. And really almost putting those blinders on in order to stay focused every day on your purpose. And I think practically speaking, for most of us, our days kind of unfold as we have to respond to the demands of people around us. And in some cases, that's how leaders care for and support those that they lead. So how do you both stay focused on your purpose and not dismiss the needs of those around you?
I think probably fundamentally by realizing that you are the project, but you're not the object. So ultimately, it's not about you. Ultimately, this is a team game. This is a team sport. Ultimately, this is about you impacting other people, impacting your community, impacting your family, impacting the world around you. Otherwise, it becomes a very selfish game. And so understanding, however, that the way in which you impact the world is to address all causes in yourself, that to show up in a healthy way is helpful to other people, and holding those two things in tension to say it's all about me and it's not about me. It's about me so that it can be about other people, and holding that tension even on a daily basis. I have to show up in a true way, but I also have to show up in a kind way. And in order for me to show up true and kind, I have to be brave to step out of the things that just suit me, to step into the things that suit other people is going to be really, really important. And so I think that asking two questions will help. Question number one, is this true to me? Is this true to who I am, to what I'm for, to how I want to show up? When you're faced with any situation, is this true to me? And secondly, is it helpful to them? And holding those two conversations close to you and holding those two conversations in tension is going to help you. You do not want to become the selfish individual for whom it's all about them. You equally don't want to become this incredibly selfless individual who just serves other people's purposes all the time and become a prisoner to other people's agendas and then deny who you are and what you're all about. So it is this dance between you and them, project and object.
Sounds like a fine balance to refine over time.
Yeah.
Can I ask more personally, what is it that you're really focused on right now? What does your road entail these days?
Well, any of you who followed Arable over the last couple of years will know that we have developed a system that we call an anti-system, true, brave, kind, and curious. And we've spent a lot of time helping individual leaders becoming healthier and stronger. We've helped teams grow. We've helped organizations begin to become the kind of organizations they want to be to impact the world. And what we've begun to realize is that I think this year for us is a year of scale. It's a year of saying, how do we put the things that we've discovered to be helpful for individuals and individual organizations into the water? How do we help other people access these things? Because we think, it's not just that we think they're brilliant, it's that we just think they're useful. They're useful for people to develop the character that they want and the character that they need. And so 3 things we're going after. The first thing that I'm working on strongly is a film or a film series. It might become a course in true, brave, kind, and curious, so that you might be able to access this in film form. You don't need me in the room because you got me on camera. And then we've also developed and we are developing a foundation, a 501c3 in America, where we can offer to those who are younger in the rising generation some of these principles and some of these practices. I have this probably quite aggressive opinion that you shouldn't be able to graduate high school, and there's no way you should be able to graduate university until you understand and have done a course in this kind of leadership, this kind of character leadership. So how do we put that into the water in a way that our 12, 13, 14-year-olds know how to be true to who they are, how to be brave and go after things, how to be kind and empathic and run a team, and how to be curious and grow every single day? Because we think that if that's possible, as basic character traits for life and leadership, then the skill sets that we can help people develop will be so much enhanced. And then the final thing that we're doing is Emily, you and I are writing a book on leadership and communication, possibly called The Persuasive Pathway, but looking how you take your leadership and communicate it in a effective way into the world. How you pitch something to somebody so they can understand it, they can embrace it, they can apply it to their lives. And what it looks like to be winsome in the way you lead a room, read a room, and communicate to a room. So that's what we're working on big, and it's pushing us because, the resources to do that is huge, but it takes some courage.
It does. It does. It takes bravery to stay the course and not get distracted with all these amazing opportunities that come
Absolutely.
up. Absolutely. Well, what you were speaking of a moment ago in terms of character leadership and how you kind of have this vision for a world where everyone is taught what it means to be a leader, and that's synonymous with a high character. So it does seem like we're in a really unique inflection point where leadership is not synonymous with character. And so I want to ask, in the context of bravery, what do you think leadership should look like in the most powerful leaders in the world today?
I long for the day when competences and character come together. And we can vote for people that we say that I love their principles and I love their policies, but I also love their personalities, I love their character, I love the way they show up. And I don't know whether it's universally true that all of our leaders have that in them, but I do know that we can hope for a future where we train that, teach that, celebrate that, don't tolerate anything that isn't that. I think I'm fascinated by. I'm living in the States right now, and I'm fascinated by what's going on there. And I kind of long for a day when we're not existing in either populist politics or polarized politics, but we're actually living in a day where we trust both the things that someone is trying to do and the personhood of that person, that they will do it in the most appropriate way. I'm fascinated by the fact, and I've said this before, but I'm fascinated by, I think whoever was advising Donald Trump in 2016 was super smart. They understood Maslow's hierarchy of human needs. They understood that people needed to feel safe before they felt significant. And then, Mr. Trump came up with, build a wall, make America great again, which is effectively safety and significance. Build a wall, safety, make America great again, significance. And I think I would encourage, if you're listening, Mr. Trump, I would encourage you to think through the fact that it's not just those pieces. In a broken play world, in a volatile, uncertain, complex, ambiguous world, it's not just the safety and the significance that are important. There might be two other S's that are like I'd like the world to think about. Safety is vital. If people don't feel safe, if they haven't got shelter, if they don't feel protected, then give up and go home on anything else you're trying to do. So safety is important. But beyond safety, sustainability is important. And sustainability is not just about the ecosystem and ecology in the world and greenhouse gases, and although that's vital and important, it's about the institutions that have broken around us. How do people feel that their lives, their money, their health is sustainable in this economy and this time? So safety, sustainability. Then significance. Yeah, totally. We want to feel like we're living for something that is meaningful. We want to feel like we're making a dent. We want to feel like we're passing something on which is helpful. We're leaving the world in a better place, politically, economically, in the family, spiritually, in all these areas. And then beyond that, beyond safety, sustainability, significance, service. How are we giving ourselves away so that we're not just becoming fat and selfish because we're getting really significant? How are we serving the people beyond us, the next generation, the people who haven't got the things that we've got? How are we not protecting ourselves against everybody else, but how are we giving ourselves beyond ourselves? Because I think two things. I think not only is that a really helpful structure for the things that we need to change and develop in a volatile, uncertain, complex, ambiguous world, I also think it would make us more winsome and more trustable because it's at the heart of human nature to want these things. So I don't know if that was a political statement. I hope it wasn't, because I don't think it's right or left. I think it's just everybody.
Well, I think there's a book idea right there, the 4 S's.
We'll work on it.
All right. So let's shift to the third space in your book, the table.
Yes.
So what's the point of the table? Of course, we all need food, and hopefully it's good food. But why is it so valuable in your mind to sit with people and to be, really intentional about how you do so?
I just think there's something very spiritual about the table, something you just don't find anywhere else. I was listening into a slightly pretentious conversation the other day where someone said, paintings are how we decorate space. Music is how we decorate time. And it sounded great. I wasn't really sure about it. But here's the thing. Food is how we catalyze connection. The table is where connection happens in a way that it doesn't happen elsewhere. There's something about a table, there's something about breaking bread, there's something about eye-to-eye contact and the space that is created there that actually isn't created anywhere else in our culture and our society. And so the table is, I don't really care whether it's a table or a rug spread on a lawn or, a card table where we crouch around. It's just the ability to pause and eat and break bread or pizza and engage in the kind of conversations that just don't happen anywhere else.
Okay, so food is how we catalyze connection. That's a great line. But tell me about the way that you describe the table, as you call it, it's the space of the kind. It's where you have the art of the kind. Tell us what you mean by the art of the kind.
Yeah, I guess I talk about that because it's the space, it's the place where you hold space for people, and space for interaction, and space for ideas, and space for humanity, and space for opinions, and space for opposing thoughts. It's why I find the whole cancel culture so, I'm going to say, repulsive, because it drives an antithetical thought away. The table is kind because it allows people to be wrong, and it allows people to grow, and it allows people to have a go at things. And it allows people who wouldn't otherwise speak to speak, and allows conversations that otherwise would not happen to happen. And it is pregnant with potential because of that. So that's why I think it's kind.
So you're describing it. It's a space where it allows people to be wrong. And I'm thinking of it's a certain type of table postured with certain types of questions that catalyze that type of conversation to take place.
Yes.
So how do you cultivate a space where people feel safe to be wrong, essentially, or to navigate through a difficult subject and not be defensive?
Well, I think it starts with intentionally posturing yourself towards that. How can this space be a safe place to have a dangerous conversation? How can this feel safe? And putting yourself in other people's minds, other people's shoes, other people's backgrounds and experiences, and say, if I'm going to make this space a welcoming space for you, I need to remind myself of where you come from, of how you engage with life. And so preparation is everything. You know, if I host a table for my family and only speak in a way that certain people with certain characteristics can really engage with, I haven't created a safe space for someone to express an opinion that might not be that well thought through, but still okay to come to the table. So preparation is everything. Comfort is important. Good food is important. If you haven't got good food, people don't want to hang around. If the wine isn't good, by good wine I mean the kind of wine you want to sip and cherish, not the kind of wine you glug and knock back because it's actually not very good wine. It's just the buzz is the best thing about it. And even things as practical as the chairs that you sit on. It's very rare that I sit at a table and go, this is as comfortable as what we call in the UK sitting soft. So I want to sit here for a while because this chair supports my great weight and it feels good and I want to hang out here. So preparing and thinking through the questions that will be helpful, understanding who is coming, making a space that feels kind and attractive for people is, it is an art form to create a table where people can really feel not on their guard, but able just to be themselves.
So it sounds like both the space and the conversation is well curated.
Yeah.
What is your favorite question to ask around the table right now?
I'm loving questions that take people back to formation. So I might ask a question, who in your life has been the most formative force? And what did they teach you? And then if we get through that, because that's a long question, my father was, or my mother was, or my school teacher was, and they taught me this lesson that I've carried through in life. It teaches you so much about the person that you're talking with. I might ask a follow-up question around, and who are you currently forming, and what are you teaching them? And so, depending very much on context, and Christmas and Thanksgiving provides a whole bunch of possibilities as far as the questions you can ask. And by the way, it doesn't always have to be super intense, because if it's always super intense, people get on their guard, don't they? Sometimes it can just be fun. What's your favorite walk-up song? If you were a Christmas character, who would you be and why? What's the worst gift you were ever given? And did you re-gift it? What? So it's just playing with it. Sometimes there's a time to go really deep, and sometimes there's a time just to go. We can have fun, and we don't have to go super intense and super deep. We just need to connect with one another. Me knowing what was the worst Christmas present someone else had around the table is actually really informative. It helps me understand something about them and what they love, what they hate, and how they can laugh at themselves. And
it is funny how sometimes the lighter questions get us to deep knowledge about people as well. So, okay, let's talk about the.
What about you? No, let's not talk anymore. Let's talk about you. What questions are you asking right now around your table? And when you picture a table, Emily, what does that table look like, and how are you setting it?
Yeah. Well, presently I have young children, so getting through anything super deep is a challenge. But we do have a practice. We have this cube that we roll, and it gives a prompt, and that's about all that we can handle with the ages of my kids. But it does give everyone a unique thing to say that they're thankful for. So it's they're
great.
thankful for a challenge or someone that they got to see that day. They have to name that. Something in nature, it's a whole variety of things. So it kind of keeps things dynamic, but we do that at every minute.
That's so good because it's developing muscles, isn't it? So when you then introduce, when they're teenagers, some slightly deeper questions, they know exactly what's expected of them and how to handle those kind of conversations.
Yeah, and I expect that it'll just get deeper and deeper as time progresses. That's the
Yeah.
hope, at least.
Yeah, I know. I'm sure it will, and I am concerned about the muscle memory that we have lost around how to have good conversations, how to ask great questions, and how to listen well, and how to listen not just to respond to keep the conversation going, but how to really listen. So you're listening to listen to understand. I don't think we teach this stuff.
Yeah, isn't that the truth? Yeah, even with young kids, that's half the battle. It's not just waiting for your turn. It's truly listening to all the people around the table. Yeah. So let's talk about the fire. So closing, this is the space in which you encourage people to close the day with a thoughtful reflection on the day. And, I think this is a great challenge just because it's when we're exhausted, our will is really depleted. And so what tips do you have for others who might struggle similarly to just be tired at the end of the day and just want to go to bed?
Yeah. I mean, I think initially you need to be convinced that it's important. If you're not convinced it's that important, then you're never going to do it. Netflix is always going to win, and the pillow is calling, and you're just done, right? And so I only have one thing to really say about being convinced that it's important. I am so desperate not to get into this Groundhog Day experience of being true, brave, and kind, and never becoming truer, braver, and kinder. In other words, staying the same and never growing. That I have to somehow process, even if it's 5 minutes, what happened during the day, and I am clear around the fact that my brain, and I think yours as well, is wired towards negativity. And so if I'm not careful, I will hang on to all the things that were bad in the day, and I will forget all the things that were good. And so the only growth I'm going to do is become more negative, and become more depressed around my life and the struggles that I've got, and become self-obsessed around those things. And so for me, the opportunity, even if it is just 5 minutes, to be able to pause and reflect enables me to interrupt that negative loop, enables me to interrupt that continual kind of vicious circle of staying the same, and learn some things. What was great about the day? What am I going to take with me? What was bad do I need to leave behind? Because if I don't actually actively leave it behind, then it will stay with me, and I will continue to reflect upon it, and it will stay, and I'll wake up in the morning thinking about it. And what do I need to get right? Because I don't want to be stuck. I don't want to get stuck. And so it's the first thing is the conviction, and the second thing is just very tactical. If I don't lay out the night before my running shoes and my running gear, the likelihood of me running in first thing in the morning is very, very slim. It's just not going to happen, because there are 1,000 things. I hate it, firstly, and there are 1,000 things that I want to do that's more important in my head, and so it's just not going to happen. But the ability to co-locate all my things so that it's very, very easy. In fact, I have to stumble over them and move them out of the way. That's really important. So the same is true with journaling. If I have my journal next to my bed with a pen that works, and as I get into bed, I turn over and it's there, I am like, I don't know what the statistic is, but I'm like 10 times more likely to actually process my day than I am if I have to go look for it, find it, go downstairs and pick it up. Or so if there's something that I've got that's in my way, it's much more likely.
So it's a cue if it's right there,
right.
Easily accessible.
Yep.
Yeah. So, and that's how you tend to process. You don't just kind of lie there in silence. You do write it out in a journal.
I have to. I mean, different people, different styles, but I have to write something down because in my great age, I forget a whole bunch of things, and I don't know how to process it otherwise.
I've heard people call writing things down desirable difficulty, where it helps you because it centrally processes things in your brain by virtue of having to write it out.
Yeah.
So and the desirable part of it is you internalize it because it's slightly more difficult than
I think that's right.
Rolling it over in your mind.
I've also heard people say that if you want to learn something, write it down, because there's something to do with the motor activity of writing that gets it, fixes it in your brain in a way that typing doesn't.
Kind of the kinetic connection there. Yeah. So the core of curiosity, this is my last question for you. The core of curiosity is really seeing everything as a school day. That's something that you say so often. And so I want to know how that plays out in what you're reading, because I know you read a lot and would love to hear if you have any reading recommendations right now.
Oh, yeah. Well, I read a lot. I read short form. I read long form. I listen a lot. I'm a kind of a collector. I want to collect people's thoughts and ideas and synthesize them and find out how I can think better about the world. So my reading is like, what's the phrase? It's like a smorgasbord of it's a huge variety of different things from different perspectives. So currently, I'm listening to a guy called Rory Sutherland, who's written a book called Alchemy. I find him fascinating. If you want to listen, I think he's the chair of an advertising agency, and his stuff is, the way he thinks is so brilliant, and it's so other that it makes me think differently. And sparks a whole bunch of thoughts for me. So Rory Sutherland, I'm currently reading John Steinbeck. I think it's called America and Americans, or Americans and America. It's a bunch of short stories, but basically because I'm moving to America and I want to understand America, and I like his writing. When I was at school, I had to read of Mice and Men and East of Eden, and I like his stuff. Our team are reading Slow Productivity. I think it's Cal Newport. And, we're reading that together. And it's fascinating. It has a very particular direction of travel for his thinking, and just super helpful. Let's get controversial. I like to listen to people like Jordan Peterson. I know that he's not everyone's cup of tea, and I don't agree with a significant amount of what he says, but he always provokes me. He always makes me think. Sometimes I'm offended, sometimes I'm upset, sometimes I just fundamentally agree. But I love that kind of emphatic, often wrong, never in doubt kind of person. Reference Brené Brown. I found Brené Brown's Atlas of the Heart super helpful when it comes to helping me understand emotions and helping me understand the emotions of some of my clients and why they show up the way they show up and what they're actually doing, and how to help them, as a kind of very amateur therapist, how to help people. So yeah, those are a few things that I'm reading right now. And of course, I am also a man of faith, so reading the Bible on a regular basis, I find that just grounds me in what I believe. Surprises me often in what comes out of the pages, and roots me in what I think is the greatest leadership practices ever.
Fantastic. Well, thank you for all those recommendations.
Well, you don't get away without answering the question yourself, Emily. What are you reading? What are you thinking about?
Well, you did reference Slow Productivity. That's one that I'm reading right now. I'm also reading a John Mark Comer book called Practicing the Way, which is very congruent with your thoughts on cadence and how important it is to develop these consistent habits day in and day out, because those are the things that shape you and form you. We think they're these simple little things that don't matter much, but they accumulate and shape who we are.
Yeah, brilliant. Sure. Yeah. Emily, it's fantastic to share a screen with you. Thank you for asking questions, and thank you for being able to contribute.
Happy to.
You've been watching The Arable Leader with Karl Martin. Subscribe for more episodes with great leaders. And you can also listen to The Arable Leader wherever you get your podcasts. For more resources for leading in a healthy way, visit arableco.com and check out Karl's new book, The Cave, the Road, the Table, and the Fire.